This guitar right here is one of the most expensive acoustic guitars that I've ever worked on. It's the Martin D45, and the reason it came to our workshop is that it's got a huge crack in one of the sides. It has a solid spruce top, rosewood back and sides, a mahogany neck and an ebony fingerboard, and all of the fancy inlays you can imagine. And I forgot to mention that the price tag on this guitar is close to 13,000 euros, so the repair has to be perfect. You might be asking yourself, how does an expensive guitar like this get damaged so badly? Well, the music store employee was trying to show this guitar around to potential buyers, and he actually dropped it. It hit the floor, and this is how this huge crack appeared. And I can imagine his heart sank when he saw the damages. Now, before I start the gluing process, I first disassemble the guitar so I can get a clear access through the sound hole. Then I take a sharp knife and gently slide it under the lacquer around the crack so I can expose the damaged area and see how far the crack really went. This is a nitrocellulose lacquer, so it peels off really nicely as it's really soft. Plus, the sides will get relacquered anyways later on. And if you've ever wondered how thick the lacquer on an expensive guitar really is and the reason it sounds so good, it's because the lacquer is only 0.15 millimeters thick or 6/1000 of an inch. Now, because this is a nitrocellulose finish, it's much more squishy to compare, let's say, a polyurethane finish, which is much more brittle when it hardens. After the lacquer is removed, you can see the exposed crack.
What?
Upon further inspection, I also noticed there's a tiny crack going alongside the main one. It's really hard to see and it's really easy to miss, but these types of cracks are nothing uncommon if the guitar took a strong hit to the side. The glue up process on this one is actually pretty simple as there is no overlapping of the side. I simply need to push them back together and apply some downward pressure. My left hand is inside the guitar so I can feel the crack with my fingers, and when the glue comes out on the other end, that's when I know I applied enough glue, and now I just wipe off the inside and outside so that there is no glue residue when the glue dries, and then I apply some downward pressure with some clamps, leave everything for 24 hours to properly cure before continuing the repair. Before I sand off the old finish from the guitar, I also like to soak the area around the crack with some super thin CA glue. And just a word of advice, this stuff is like water, so you have to be extremely careful not to spill it all over the guitar. After a couple of hours, the CA glue had time to properly cure and I can move on to the next phase of this repair. Some might say this next step is an overkill, but with all of my repairs, I like to take the extra step and make sure that everything is done properly. I will add 2 extra rosewood reinforcement pieces on the sides. As you can see, there are already 2 factory pieces placed above the braces, and if anyone ever looks inside the guitar after the repair is done, there will be no way of knowing there was any work done on this guitar, as everything will look nice and clean and as original as possible. The only tricky part here is finding the right piece of rosewood to match the grain orientation and color of the already existing reinforcement pieces inside the guitar. Luckily, I have many blanks to choose from, so it's just about taking the time to find the right one, as you do in life when you're searching for the right person to spend your life with. I carefully measured all of the current reinforcement pieces inside the guitar, and then I transferred all of the measurements on this blank, and then it's just about taking the time to cut everything to the correct length, width and thickness. Every time I show this belt sander in one of my videos, I get a few comments saying on how scary and unsafe this machine is, and I gotta say, this is actually one of the safest machines in woodworking. The worst thing that can happen on this machine is you can basically sand off a few fingertips and compared to the other machines where you can cut off a finger or two, this belt sander is considered pretty safe. And if your fingers actually touch the sandpaper, the machine is spinning so fast it actually pushes your fingers out of the way. Don't ask me how I know that. Now back to the repair. I made 4 of these rosewood reinforcement pieces, 2 for each side. Even though this side was not damaged, I wanted it to look identical if you look inside the guitar. So when the side gets re-lacquered, the repair will basically be invisible. Now before I glue the reinforcements on the sides, for demonstration purposes I place them inside the guitar so you can get a better understanding of how it will look when everything dries. You can see all of the 4 pieces look identical, even though 2 of those were already there and 2 of those I made myself. And if you were asking yourself, how will I place these pieces in and glue them up? Well, this is where the power of magnets comes into play. If you've ever worked on any side or back repair on an acoustic or classical guitar, you will know it's basically impossible to clamp anything up, as the area is so closed off, there is no way to get any clamp pressure inside. So, the only way to solve this problem is to get yourself a couple of these strong industrial magnets in different sizes, as the bigger the magnet is, the stronger they are, and you will never know what size of the tool will be best for the current job you are doing, so it's always good to have a few options on hand. I'm using double-sided tape to stick the magnets on the wood, and it's also very easily removable when the glue dries. I'm using 2 or you could say 4 magnets for each reinforcement piece, which will provide me with enough pressure to properly secure the reinforcements to the sides. And the good thing about magnets is they are really easy to work with, as I can simply move the outside ones and I can easily place the reinforcement to the correct position. After I do a dry run to make sure that everything will go smoothly, which I always recommend you do with any type of gluing job, it's time to apply the glue and clamp everything up. Or should I say magnet everything up.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
After all of the reinforcements are in the correct position, I leave the glue to dry for 24 hours before I remove all of the magnets. With any type of glue job, it's always important to apply just enough glue. Not too much, as you don't want everything to spill out, and not too little, as you want to have the strongest bond possible. So after 24 hours, this is what the inside of the guitar looks like. Each side now has 4 reinforcements instead of 2, and the sides are much stronger now. And now comes the final stage of this repair, which is refinishing the sides. It's also the most time-consuming part of the repair, as the lacquer needs a lot of time to cure between all of the coats, and this is nitrocellulose finish, so it's very important that you do not rush this process. Otherwise, if you apply a new coat of lacquer on top of the old one, which has not cured yet, you will have all sorts of funny stuff going on in the finish, and you will basically have to strip everything down and start all over again. Before the first coat of lacquer is applied, I like to do the final sanding by hand with 400 grit sandpaper so that there are no scratch marks in the wood. And one very important tip, when you are sanding a dark wood like rosewood or ebony for example, you have to sand away from the binding, as you don't want the fine wood dust to smear all over the white binding, and if you apply a new coat of lacquer on top of it, there is no coming back and you will have to strip everything down again to bare wood to remove it. Between the first sealer coat and the final coat, this guitar was sprayed 10 times, and with sanding between each of the layers, the final thickness is just about 3 to 5 layers. And that is the reason why all of the high-end acoustic guitars sound so good if they were made with nitrocellulose finish. The final thickness of the lacquer is paper thin, which means that the wood can vibrate more freely, and at the end I'll have a sound demo playing with this guitar and you can hear how good it sounds just with a close-up mic. Before I assemble the guitar back together and show you the final shots, I like to hand polish the guitar just to give it that extra shine. I'm using a microfiber cloth which is really soft and doesn't leave any scratch marks, so I simply wipe off the dust and then apply some polishing compound. I also forgot to mention, if you are using a buffing wheel like I did earlier to polish up the guitar, you have to be really careful not to heat up the lacquer too much, as you can melt the top layer, at which point you have to start over and completely remove the finish to make it look perfect. I am 99% done with the repair on this Martin D45. I just need to put on some strings and tune it up, and then I can show you the after shots of this repair and how amazing it sounds. So there you go. This is the end of the repair on this expensive Martin guitar, and here is how it looked like before, and here is how it looks like now. The sides are completely refinished, the crack is reinforced, and the clients were beyond thrilled with the final result. And I have to say, I'm pretty happy with the results as well. The repair is practically invisible, and there is no one on this earth who will know that this guitar was ever repaired except me and maybe you watching. But anyways, if you liked the video, consider sharing it with others, it helps a lot. And if you're feeling generous, consider subscribing here or on Patreon. This is it for this one. I'll have sound demos playing at the end, and I hope to see you in the next one.